In this episode, I'm going to talk about my love, my hate, my burning jealousy of Halloween costumes in the 1980s. So, stick around. Hello, and welcome to Days of Dorker Past. My name's Rob, and this is the Halloween Costume Spooktacular. I'm going to go over the costumes that I had growing up, the costumes that I wanted, and the costumes that I look back at now and wish that I had. When I was a kid growing up in the 1980s, 100% of my costumes for Halloween were homemade. And sometimes even saying homemade was a stretch because I remember dashing through the Goodwill with my mom the day before Halloween, and just grabbing whatever and throwing it on me, and that's what I was. Sometimes it worked out, other times it didn't. But I want to talk about some of my fond memories of Halloween's gone by. Um, One of the earliest Halloweens that I only remember because there's a picture was when I was a ghost. Um, a simple sheet, holes cut out in it, but what made it a little bit different was my parents placed a hat on my head. Now, looking back at it, it kind of reminds me of the movie Halloween just a little bit, but that's probably one of my earliest memories. And like I said, I think the picture is more of my nostalgia than actual memories of that Halloween. Um, Trick or treating, most of the time, I would go to my aunt's. She lived just right outside of a huge development, and she lived a half an hour, 45 minutes away. And we would travel to her house, and my cousins were vastly older than me. So they would chaperone me around. Sometimes my mom would. But a lot of the memories I have and my thought of the magic and whimsy of it come from those times. Because the neighborhood was spread out and it had a lot of wooded areas. Um, so you would hear the crunching of leaves or the wind blowing the leaves down the street, and just those sounds and the imagination and what was a little bit scary at that time for a kid hearing that stuff. I can remember one where it sounded like someone was following us through the woods, my cousins and I, and hearing the leaves crack and twigs snap behind us, and us pick up our pace and becoming frantic towards the last moments until we reached the porch light of a house. Then all of a sudden, a cat popped out. But that moment is something that is cemented in my mind as the quintessential Halloween memory. But anyway, we're here to talk about costumes. So, that being one of my earliest memories, the next that I vividly remember is probably around 1981 when Clash of the Titans came out. Perseus to me was up there with Luke Skywalker as one of the greatest heroes. I love that movie. I still love it. It's a great movie with some of the best work that Ray Harryhausen has ever done, and it's just a perfect fantasy film. Um, don't care too much for the remake, but the original with Harry Hamlin, awesome. But anyway, I was Perseus one Halloween, and easy costume to make, just a white sheet as a toga, cut out a sword and shield and covered it in tinfoil, even though his shield was gold, and there you go. Now, I was thin then as a little kid, so I didn't care if I was going to tromp around the neighborhood in a toga and sneakers, but it just happened to be a very cold Halloween. So I had to wear long underwear underneath my get up. And that just, it kind of ruined it, but still awesome. And, of course, you have to tell, people when you're trick or treating, oh, what are you? I'm Perseus. They had no idea what I was talking about because it wasn't that popular of a film, unfortunately. Now, another costume that I vividly remember, um, and I wish I had pictures of it. I mean, it was very simple to describe, but I wish I had pictures. Was Luke Skywalker from Return of the Jedi. Very simple getup. I think I was just wearing black sweatpants, black sweatshirt, and my mom made me a black cloak that I put up. Pretty simple, but I felt like Luke that night, and probably one of the easiest costumes ever, besides a toga. And I was just whisked away. I didn't have a lightsaber or anything. I never had a lightsaber growing up as a kid. And honestly, the first one that I own isn't even mine. It's my kids. And I got them too when we were at Disney World with the make your own lightsaber thing. And I mean, even though I didn't have one, they're going to have them. Now, the next few years are shaky in my memory. I remember one year my mom made me go to some stupid church Halloween thing where you couldn't even wear costumes and you got candy handed to you and it was some lame haunted house thing. That was a lame Halloween. But other than that, it's shaky. I remember being a little bit older, and probably one of my favorite Halloween costumes was that of a werewolf. And we bought the werewolf makeup kit, the brown face paint. It came with a nose that you double sticked on to give you a little bit of a snout. And what my mom did after that was bought some brown fur from probably Joann's Fabric and made like a skull cap of it. So I had this raggedy brown fur, and we cut out ears out of a milk jug for pointed ears and colored them brown. Um, like I said, I mean, it's probably one of my favorite. I have a lot of memories of it. I think I actually had, like the cotton brown gardening gloves with little milk jug claws on it. But I have great memories of that. I know there's a picture of it somewhere, and I would love to find it, but I have no idea where it's at. I went looking, and I will include a couple pictures in this. I probably have one earlier of the ghost, but one of my favorites of all time. Great memories of that. I remember walking in the Halloween parade our town had in that costume, because when I was in Cub Scouts, we always participated in the Halloween parade. Now, I do have pictures of this, but for 2 years in a row, I was a pirate. And like I said, this was a good example of Goodwill Halloween shopping. Um, I don't really have any memories of those those years in particular, but these pictures I do remember wearing the pirate get-ups, but I don't really remember the Halloweens per se. But I went trick-or-treating, I know that much. After that, it's kind of a blur. I don't really remember that many Halloweens. I remember when I was in high school, I attempted to, or maybe middle school, I attempted to make a Wolverine costume of a specific picture that I cannot find anywhere but in my comics that I don't have time to dig through at the moment, from the Fall of the Mutants storyline of X-Men, where Wolverine was not wearing his mask. He just had a cowboy hat on, and his costume and with a duster or a overcoat. So I remember Goodwill finding an overcoat, a hat, and buying yellow sweatpants and a yellow shirt. And I attempted to use cardboard to cut out his chest embellishment and shoulder pad thing, and I didn't wear brown underwear, but I did borrow a pair of my mom's winter boots that were not, they were just suede, tan suede boots that came up to my thigh, or I'm sorry, up to my calf, and I cut out cardboard to give it his little angled pieces, and I stuck them down in there, and I felt very proud of my attempt until I decided to walk in the Halloween parade like that, and then that pride quickly turned into embarrassment. Yeah. Yeah, that was a big fail, but I was proud for a little bit about it.
Planning to clown around Halloween? Rayleigh's have the makeup. It's easy to apply, and one kit makes several different faces. If you want to become an instant fright, Rayleigh's drugs have a chilling variety of masks. Be a werewolf, a Frankenstein, or a scary monster. We have costumes for little goblins, and everything for your party table. Fresh baked cakes, donuts, cookies, and cupcakes from our bakery, and tons of Halloween candy. Lots of sale prices, too. Come shop Rayleigh's for Halloween.
Now, on this channel, we talk a lot about a three-prong attack, or a triple threat that we experienced in the 80s, and that was your toys, your cartoons, and your comics. But there was another thing, and that was Halloween costumes. One of the kings of Halloween costumes was Ben Cooper. He had, well, his company had more licenses than anybody else. And apparently he had a real knack for getting licenses before they even, hit the toy shelves or appeared on TV. So, one of the problems of being a homemade costume kid is you always wanted a store-bought one. Just because you could 100% be what you wanted to be without any question. There was no explaining. You slapped on that trash bag of a smock with leggings and put on your cheap plastic mask, and you were automatically the character you wanted to be. It wasn't what materials can we get for you to be something. Because there was a lot of questions leading up to Halloween of, we have these things so you could be X, Y, and Z. Not, what do you really want to be? Cool, you can be that. So I always wanted one of those cheap costumes. Of course, nowadays probably hearing homemade and stuff sounds great. And it was. I look back at it fondly. But still something I always wanted. When you walked the Halloween aisle, there would be boxes stacked up. I can remember walking through the drug fair every year, and they would have the Ben Cooper Collegeville boxes all stacked up, and you'd go written on the sides were what they were, and if you saw something that jumped out, you would grab it and look at it. And however much they were back then, I don't even remember, was too much for my parents. Especially for something that they knew was cheap and would rip apart. But, like I said, you always want something you can never have. Now, I wish I could remember fondly longing for certain ones, but I don't. I mean, I remember looking at them. None of them jump out in my memory. But going back and looking at them today, I have a list of 10 that I wish I would have had growing up. Now, number 1 on the list I see as being one of the quintessential get-ups, and that's the Yoda get-up. Now, looking at both, I was more, or I'm more of a fan of the color scheme of the Empire Strikes Back version. When it got to Return of the Jedi, yes, they got the color right of Yoda, but there's just something about the soft green teal palette that they used for the Empire Strikes Back version that I just love. And I love the artwork on the smock. I mean, that's a version or artwork of Yoda that you don't see but on this smock, and I think it's awesome. Now, I would love to have this. I would have loved to wear this. Um, so that's number one on the list because I think it's the one that you see the most of nowadays. And, a lot of the nostalgia pictures people post, there's a Yoda in them. Now, number two on the list is kind of cheating because there's two of them. I can't decide which one I would want more. But it's Masters of the Universe Skeletor or Beastman. They both are awesome. Both, have the look of the character. They didn't go with the artwork or anything like on the smock, like on some of them on this list. They actually went with what the character looked like. You had Skeletor's blue skin, his armor, and you had Beastman's orange skin and furry armor with the little gem in it. But I would have loved to wear these as a kid. Now, number three on the list was one I didn't even know existed, that I didn't even know was made. Because as much as I love the toy line, it came and it went very quick. But that was Dargon from the Sectars. Man, if I knew this existed back then, oh man, I would have begged and pleaded with my parents because I love this toy line so much. And if I had this today, damn, I'd be happy, dude. Now, number four, big fan, but I just love the simplicity of this costume and how it just matches right up with the cartoon and the toy. But that's Matt Tracker from Mask. Huge fan of the toys, love the cartoon, and this outfit is a great representation of Matt Tracker. I mean, the only thing that would have been better if it was a full mask around the head, but for a plastic thing just over the front of your face, awesome. Now, number five. Man, I would love to have it today. I do have something similar in my collection, but the original G.I. Joe. I'm assuming this is Grunt because it kind of has his package art on the smock, but I believe the tag just said G.I. Joe. Now, not recently, a couple years found at a flea market a Sergeant Slaughter outfit, and I do have that in my collection, and I actually wear it in one episode that you can see here. Anyway, man, back then I would have loved it. It's simple, but that's what G.I. Joe was when it first came out, and this costume represents the excitement of G.I. Joe, the newness of G.I. Joe, and just, oh, perfect. Now, number six was one that I didn't know existed back then, but when I see pictures of it online now, man, I would have loved to have it. But that's Voltron. Now, they could have done a lot better on the smock, but the mask is great. It has all the details that Voltron had in his robotic face, but like I said, the smock, really lacking. Yeah, it has different colored limbs, but if it came with like little oven mitts for the lion heads, that would have been better. Number seven, one that, again, if I knew it existed as a child, I would have relinquished my firstborn for it. Well, I don't really mean that nowadays because she's pretty cool. But Indiana Jones. Huge Indiana Jones fan as a kid, just like I am now. And, oh man, I could see wearing this costume and just having some cheap braided rope in my hand to pretend it was a whip. I mean, down on the leg of it, you have his gun holster. awesome. The colors are perfect. It resembles Indy to a T. Number 8 is one I would love to find in a flea market. I would drop some serious coin on it because of the rarity of anything from this cartoon. But from Thundar, Ukla the Muck. As far as I know, he's the only character that got a costume for Halloween, and I'm sure it was very short lived since the cartoon only ran one season. But how awesome is that? The artwork on the smock is a little off. I mean, Jack Kirby did artwork for it. They could have slapped one of his pieces of Ukla up on there, and it would have been, I mean, probably the best costume of all time. But they kind of just, yeah, it doesn't work. But the mask, just the fact that it's something from Thundar, perfect. Now, number 9, guilty pleasure. I would love to have it today, just like everything else on this list, but the Wicked from Return of the Jedi costume. Oh, man. The only thing better than that is I remember in one of the Halloween parades that I was in, there was a dude, a kid that lived near me that honestly was a dick. But he had a full furry Ewok outfit. Because one of the things that I didn't mention as far as your costume options went were homemade, Goodwill, these type of costumes, the cheap ones, or patterns. I think like McCall's or something had patterns at Joann's. And that was the stuff that required a lot of work, a lot of planning, and ended up probably being a lot of money to buy the proper materials. But this dude had a full Ewok outfit on, and he was riding a four-wheeler in the parade. Yeah, I was jealous, definitely. That doesn't take away the fact that the kid was a jerk. Now, number 10 on the list is another one like Ukla that if I saw it today, I would, oh, I'd have to beg my wife like I would have to beg my parents back then. But Warduke from D&D. Now, the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons toys, I mean, they were awesome toys. And Dungeons and Dragons had infiltrated throughout a lot of stuff back then, contrary to how much everyone was fighting against it. But you could get D&D erasers, pencils, pencil sharpeners, color by number, statue painting kits. But a Warduke Halloween costume? Damn! And it is pretty. They did a great job. They have the package art that I think is Larry Elmore maybe on the smock. And it looks great. Yet, like I said, it's one that I'd be begging my wife for, just like I'd be begging my parents back in the day. But back then, I didn't know it existed because I didn't linger in that aisle too long because that was stuff I wasn't going to be getting. But I still have fond memories of seeing those rows of boxes. And yeah, I mean, they had some hung up with a cardboard hanger. But those boxes, that's where the memories are at. Anyway, thanks for watching. Just a quick trip down memory lane talking about some of my favorite costumes growing up, some of the ones I wish I had. And, I mean, the costumes nowadays when you buy, the packs, some of them are cheap, some of them aren't, but that nylon suit, or whatever the heck it is, polyester suit that you get, and the mask, which is a lot sturdier, those are awesome because there is no questioning what your kids want to be, what they are, and how excited their imagination gets when they can pretend to be that character for a night while they go scavenging for candy around the neighborhood. Costumes have come a long way, and nowadays the whole homemade route has gotten off the chain because there's some really imaginative ones that they blow my mind with how good they have gotten. They've come a long way from the Goodwill and a couple pieces from a milk jug. Anyway, thanks for watching. This has been Days of Dorker Past. My name is Rob. Keep being rad, stay dorky, have a safe and happy Halloween. See ya! Thank you for watching this episode presented by My Side of the Laundry Room. Please check out some of these other recommended videos, and if you enjoyed what you've watched, please hit the subscribe button. You can also follow on Twitter, like on Facebook, and read up on My Side of the Laundry Room at our blog. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep being rad and stay dorky.